Jimin screams, "Don't touch me," in front of the cameras. What he says next leaves Jungkook shattered beyond repair. The truth breaks everything. "Don't touch me." Jimin Rightquote's voice cracked like thunder across the hotel corridor, echoing off the marble walls as his arm violently jerked away from Jungkook Rightquote's grasp. The hallway went deathly still. Jungkook froze mid-step, his hand hanging uselessly in the air, and his heart fractured with the sound of Jimin Rightquote's rejection. It wasn't the cameras or the faint buzz of reporters outside the elevator that made his throat close. It was Jimin Rightquote's eyes. Cold. Empty. Not even anger lived in them anymore, just absence, just the void where warmth used to be. The hallway lights flickered once as if reacting to the sudden chill between them. Jungkook Rightquote's voice trembled when he finally found it. "Hyung, please talk to me." "Why would I?" Jimin said, voice low, words like sharpened glass. He didn't yell again. He didn't need to. The edge in his tone was enough to draw blood. Behind them, Taehyung emerged from the suite, stopping mid-step, his expression darkening as he registered the scene. Jungkook with desperation written all over his face, and Jimin, unmoving, unreadable, wounded but unwilling to bleed. "I told you not to follow me," Jimin muttered, brushing past Jungkook without another glance, his shoulder knocking against his chest like a final blow. And just like that he was gone, footsteps swallowed by the plush carpet and the weight of everything unsaid. Jungkook collapsed onto the hallway bench, elbows on knees, palms covering his face. He didn't cry, not yet, but something deeper crumbled inside him, something vital. Behind his hands the world turned quieter, smaller, suffocating. A week ago Jimin had held his hand backstage, had laughed at his bad jokes, had leaned into his shoulder like it was the most natural place in the world to be. Now he wouldn't even look him in the eye. The reason? That night in Tokyo. The one Jungkook had convinced himself wouldn't matter. The one secret he thought he'd buried deep enough beneath charm, rehearsals, and shared dinners. But Jimin had found out. Of course he had. Jimin always knew. The ache wasn't just guilt. It was knowing Jimin had hoped, believed in something until he couldn't anymore. Taehyung didn't say anything. He stood silently for a moment before quietly retreating, the sound of the door clicking shut behind him as if marking the beginning of a war no one wanted to fight, but none of them could avoid. Jungkook stayed in that hallway long after Jimin had vanished down the elevator. His phone buzzed twice. First, a message from their manager. Emergency meeting at 3 p.m. No excuses. Second, a message from an unknown number. He deserves better than you. Jungkook didn't need to guess who had sent it. He didn't even need to respond. He knew. And that knowledge settled in his chest like a shard of ice, sharp, cold, and permanent. "I said I'm not doing this," Jimin snapped, slamming his palm flat on the glass table in the conference room. His voice, though not loud, was sharp enough to silence the room of HYBE executives instantly. Their manager Minji flinched slightly, trying to maintain composure, but the air had already turned volatile. Jungkook sat across from Jimin, eyes swollen from a night of no sleep and lips pressed tight in restraint. He hadn't said a word since he entered. He didn't trust himself to. Jimin Rightquote's outburst was expected, but the venom in his tone was. The room smelled faintly of air freshener and coffee, but beneath it all there was something heavier, tension soaked in betrayal. "You are a professional, Jimin," Director Kang said sternly, his hands folded, tone bordering between condescension and frustration. "This comeback is not about your personal issues. It's about the group." Jimin laughed bitterly, a sound that made Jungkook Rightquote's stomach twist. "Tell that to him," Jimin spat, nodding at Jungkook without sparing him a glance. "He's the one who brought personal issues into our rehearsals, into our lives, into everything. I'm just reacting." Finally, Jungkook stood. "You think this was easy for me," he said, his voice breaking. "You think I wanted any of this to happen?" Jimin turned his eyes slowly toward him, his gaze icy and unreadable. "No, I think you wanted to have both, the group and her." A sharp inhale rippled through the room like an unseen wave. Jungkook Rightquote's jaw clenched. "It wasn't like that." "Then how was it?" Jimin Rightquote's voice rose, brittle with disbelief. "You lied to my face. Every time you smiled at me, every time you asked if I was okay, you had her waiting in that Tokyo hotel room. Don't stand there and act like you're the victim." "I didn't know she would be there," Jungkook said, voice raw. "I didn't plan it. I didn't invite her. She showed up." I left as soon as I could. But not soon enough, Jimin said through gritted teeth, his fingers curling into fists. You didn't tell me, you let me find out through her. You know what she said when I picked up your phone. You didn't tell him we spent the night together. A strangled silence swallowed the room. Jungkook stared at him, helpless, his breath stuck in his throat. I didn't sleep with her, he whispered. I swear to God, Jimin, I didn't. Jimin stepped closer, close enough to smell the faint traces of Jungkook's cologne, familiar, hated, comforting, and repulsive all at once. But you kissed her, he said, voice low, trembling, and you let her put her hands on you. Jungkook didn't deny it. He couldn't. His silence was the answer. Taehyung slammed his fist on the table. That's enough, both of you, he barked. Everyone jumped. His voice hadn't held that kind of rage since the early days of debut. We're not doing this in front of them, he growled, glaring at the suits in the room. You all want to come back, then treat us like humans, not circus animals. Director Kang opened his mouth, but Taehyung didn't let him speak. You knew about this, he said, his tone accusatory. You knew what happened in Tokyo. You let her into the hotel, didn't you? You set him up. Jimin turned sharply toward Taehyung, confused. What? Taehyung nodded slowly, eyes still on Kang. You think I don't talk to staff? She was cleared by someone high up. She wasn't supposed to be anywhere near us. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a trap. Jimin staggered back a step, blinking as if the ground beneath him had just shifted. Why? He whispered. Why would they? Because scandals sell, Taehyung snapped. Because if fans see us fracture, it creates headlines, engagement, sympathy, clicks. You think they care about our mental health? They care about numbers, streams, trending hashtags. Director Kang stood now, expression dark. You're out of line. And you're a coward, Taehyung retorted, hiding behind policies while you play with our lives. The room exploded into shouting, executives defending the company, Taehyung firing back, Jimin gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Jungkook stared at the chaos around him, numb, until Jimin's voice cut through it all like a blade. I'm taking a break, he announced. Everything stopped. Effective immediately. I won't be part of the promotions. I won't sing. I won't dance. I won't fake smiles. I need to breathe or I'll drown. You're under contract, someone started. Jimin spun to face the voice. Then sue me, he hissed. I have nothing left to lose. He walked out, the sound of the door slamming behind him like the last page of a book closing too early. Jungkook didn't follow him this time. He couldn't. Not after what he'd done. Not after what had been done to them. And somewhere deep inside, he wondered if this was the price of being loved in the spotlight, when everything real was twisted into entertainment, and every wound was someone else's content. You knew she was dangerous. Jimin's voice trembled with rage as he shoved the door to their old practice room open, slamming it behind him. Taehyung was already inside, packing in circles, a storm beneath the surface. The walls, once filled with laughter and echoes of rehearsals, now held tension so thick it choked the air. Taehyung turned to face him, his eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched. You think I didn't try to stop it? He snapped. You think I didn't warn him? Jimin's fists were shaking, his voice rising with every word. You told me to trust him, you said he wouldn't hurt me. And I believed that, Taehyung shouted back. I believed he was better than this. Silence crashed down. Jimin looked away, blinking rapidly, fighting tears that burned in his eyes. His voice dropped to a whisper more terrifying than his scream. He's not who I thought he was. The door opened again. Jungkook stepped in, hesitant, eyes pleading. Jimin. Get out, Jimin hissed, his back still turned. Please, just hear me out. Get out. Jimin spun around. Eyes wet, voice cracked, pain seeping through every syllable. Jungkook didn't move. You think you're the only one hurting, he said, stepping closer. You think I didn't punish myself every night for that mistake? It wasn't a mistake, Jimin growled. It was a choice. You chose her. I didn't choose anyone, Jungkook said through clenched teeth. I was used. I was manipulated. Don't you dare, Jimin cut in, voice like steel. Don't you dare paint yourself as the victim. You let her in. You let her get close. You kissed her. You can't spin that into an accident. She told me you were planning to leave, Jungkook blurted. She said you had already signed with another label. I thought you didn't care anymore. I was drunk and angry, and Jimin laughed sharp, bitter, hollow. So your excuse is betrayal based on a rumor, Jungkook's voice broke. I panicked. I was scared of losing you. I messed up, I admit it. But I didn't stop loving you, not for a second. Love. Jimin's voice cracked, his breath catching. You think this is love? You think love is letting someone else touch you because you're insecure? Taehyung stepped between them before it turned violent. Enough, he said, though his voice wasn't steady either. You're both bleeding and all you're doing is stabbing each other deeper. Jimin pushed past him and faced Jungkook head-on. You want the truth? He asked. You want to know what I was planning? Jungkook nodded slowly, lips parted, chest heaving. I was planning a surprise for you, for us. I had been talking to a team about a subunit project, just the two of us. I wrote 3 songs, I even designed the cover. I wasn't leaving, I was building something for you. Jungkook's knees buckled. He grabbed onto the mirrored wall to keep from falling. His voice came out in a broken whisper. I didn't know, because you didn't ask, Jimin said, his voice as soft as it was lethal. You let fear speak louder than trust. The door opened again. Namjoon stepped in, followed by Yoongi and Jin. The tension in the room was obvious, even before a word was spoken. They know, Taehyung said quickly, about everything. Yoongi walked up to Jungkook. You want to break this group apart, you're doing a damn good job. I didn't mean for this to happen, Jungkook said, still breathless. Jin crossed his arms. But you let it happen. We're not just colleagues, we're brothers. And you let a scandal jeopardize everything we built. Jimin looked at them all, then at Jungkook, who was now sitting on the floor, shaking, crumbling in slow motion. I'm still leaving, Jimin said quietly. Maybe not forever, but for now I can't breathe here, not with all of you watching me like I'm broken. You're not broken, Jungkook whispered. Jimin turned his gaze to him one last time. Yes, I am, and you broke me. He walked out, shoulders stiff, hands clenched, heart in pieces. No one followed him this time, not even Jungkook. They just watched the door close, and this time it felt like it wouldn't open again. Jungkook looked down at his phone, at the last unsent message to Jimin, his thumb trembling above the send button. It said nothing poetic, nothing profound. Just 3 words, please come back. But he couldn't bring himself to hit send. Not yet. Not after what he'd destroyed. Not after what Jimin had just revealed. And somewhere deep inside the silence that followed, a part of him finally understood. Love wasn't enough. Not without truth. And maybe, just maybe, it never had been. You're making a mistake, Taehyung muttered as he caught up to Jimin just outside the building's back exit, breathless, jacket half-zipped, the sole air biting against his skin. Jimin didn't stop walking. You don't get to say that, he replied coldly, the click of his boots on the pavement punctuating his words. You stood by him, you protected him. Taehyung grabbed his arm, forceful enough to make him halt. I protected all of us. Don't twist it, I told the truth. Jimin yanked his arm away, eyes blazing. You told the truth when it was already too late. You knew she was let in on purpose, and you still let me scream in front of executives like some unhinged idiot. You let them paint me as the problem. Taehyung's voice cracked. Because if I said it earlier, the scandal would have doubled. They would have turned her into the victim. We were trying to manage the fire, not pour gasoline. Jimin turned to him fully now, chest heaving. And what about my fire, T? What about me? I was burning from the inside and not one of you threw me water. You watched me burn down. Taehyung looked pained. You think it was easy for me, watching you shatter and Jungkook implode and the whole team walking on eggshells every day. You think I didn't try? Jimin's lip trembled, but he bit it hard. I didn't need you to try. I needed you to stand with me when it mattered. And you walked away, Taehyung said bitterly. You left all of us. No, Jimin whispered. I left him. A black car pulled up. The window rolled down, revealing manager Minji, eyes weary but silent. Jimin opened the door. Before he got in, he glanced back at Taehyung. Tell them I'm not disappearing. I'm reclaiming myself. The door slammed and the car pulled away, leaving Taehyung alone in the gray drizzle of late winter. Meanwhile, inside the building, Jungkook sat in the dance practice room alone, the mirrors surrounding him like ghosts. His hoodie was soaked in sweat, though he hadn't danced at all. He stared at his reflection like it was someone else, someone he hated. The door creaked open and Yoongi walked in, holding 2 bottled waters. He tossed one at Jungkook, who barely caught it. You look like shit, Yoongi muttered. Thanks. That's not a compliment. Jungkook opened the bottle and drank, his throat dry and sore. I don't know how to fix this. You can't, Yoongi said bluntly, sitting down beside him. Some things you break and they never go back to what they were. Jungkook ran a hand through his damp hair. Then what's the point? Yoongi stared ahead, not answering immediately. The point isn't to restore it, it's to figure out if you can build something new with the pieces. He won't talk to me, Jungkook whispered. He doesn't even look at me anymore. You hurt him in the most personal way possible, Yoongi said flatly. You betrayed his trust. It's not just about the girl, it's about everything. The timing, the secrecy, the way you let him spiral. I thought he didn't want me anymore, Jungkook choked. I thought I was just disposable. Yoongi looked at him now, eyes heavy with something that almost resembled pity. You think that justifies what you did? Jungkook's silence said everything. Yoongi stood. Here's the thing, Jimin was planning your future. You planned your escape, that's the difference. He left without another word. Later that night, Jungkook sat on his bed staring at the song lyrics Jimin had left behind in their shared studio. Crumpled pages, handwritten verses. His voice, his metaphors, his pain frozen in ink. The chorus read, I made a home in your silence / built walls out of your lies, but even shadows deserve warmth and I'm tired of being cold. Jungkook sobbed like a child. No cameras, no staff, just him and his own unforgivable actions. At the same time, Jimin landed in Jeju, a private retreat far from the chaos. He didn't go for luxury, he went for distance. But even as he stood on the beach, wind whipping his coat, eyes closed to the sound of crashing waves, he felt it, the ache, the invisible thread that still tied him to a name he couldn't say aloud without falling apart. His phone buzzed, unknown number. I miss the way you breathe when you sleep. No name, but he didn't need one. He threw the phone onto the sand, chest heaving, tears spilling fast, and screamed into the ocean as if it could drown the memory. But oceans don't wash away what lives in your bones. They only echo it louder. And tonight, even the sea sounded like his name. Jungkook. The door slammed so hard the windows trembled, and Jungkook barely flinched as Namjoon stormed into the studio, throwing a file folder onto the table so violently that papers flew in every direction. You think this is how you handle it? Namjoon snapped, chest rising and falling, eyes burning with rage. Jungkook didn't move from the floor where he sat, back against the wall, knees pulled to his chest like a punished child. You ignore rehearsals, you disappear from vocal training, and you leak lyrics that weren't yours to leak. I didn't leak them, Jungkook muttered. They were stolen. From where? Namjoon shouted. Only you had them, only you were in the studio, only you knew where Jimin kept his drafts, so unless the ghost of Tokyo came back to haunt us, it's on you. Jungkook's jaw clenched, voice shaking. I sent them to her, weeks ago, before the fight, before I knew anything. The silence that followed was deafening. Namjoon's fists curled at his sides. You sent Jimin's private lyrics to her. I thought she was just helping me workshop ideas, Jungkook said desperately. I didn't know she was manipulating you, Namjoon interrupted, sarcasm dripping. She wasn't a ghost, Jungkook, she was your choice, over and over. Jungkook stood now, face flushed. I was scared, Hyung. Everything was falling apart, and she said he was already planning to leave me behind. So you betrayed him first just to feel less abandoned, Namjoon hissed, stepping forward. You're not a kid anymore, Jungkook. You don't get to hide behind fear when people are bleeding because of you. I didn't mean for this to happen. Intentions don't fix consequences, Namjoon roared. You broke something in him that might never heal. The door opened again, and this time it was Jin, his face pale, phone clutched tightly in his hand. Turn on the TV, he said flatly. Now. Yoongi appeared behind him, face dark. Jungkook scrambled to the monitor on the wall and switched to the live entertainment news channel. The headline hit him like a fist. Jimin BTS spotted at Jeju Psychiatric Wellness Center, emotional burnout confirmed. The footage played in slow motion, Jimin, masked, hood pulled low, being ushered inside by a discreet-looking medical team. Reporters shouted questions. He said nothing. But even behind the mask, his body looked frail, distant, broken. Jungkook's stomach dropped. No, he whispered. He said he just needed rest. He said he lied, Yoongi said grimly, to protect himself and maybe to protect you. I have to go to him, Jungkook said, grabbing his coat. Namjoon blocked the door. You're the last person he wants to see. I don't care, Jungkook barked, shoving him aside. He needs to hear the truth from me. He doesn't need more trauma, Jin warned. He needs space. And what if he thinks I never cared? Jungkook's voice cracked, chest heaving. What if he believes that she was more important than him? You made him believe that, Yoongi said coldly. And now you think a dramatic visit will fix it. I'll do anything, Jungkook said through gritted teeth. Anything to make him look at me again without flinching. Meanwhile, in Jeju, Jimin sat in a quiet therapy room, hands trembling as he gripped a warm mug of tea he hadn't touched. Across from him sat Dr. Han, calm, patient, a silent observer of his unraveling. I don't know who I am without him, Jimin admitted, eyes downcast. Not as a member, not as a man. Do you want him back? Dr. Han asked softly. Jimin's eyes glistened. I want to forget him. I want to erase that night. I want to stop hearing his voice in my sleep. And yet I check my phone 100 times a day, Jimin confessed. Every vibration, I think it's him. Even when I block his number, I wait for a message. Because, Jimin swallowed, because I'm terrified he'll stop trying. Dr. Han said nothing, just scribbled something in her notebook. Do you hate him? She asked. Yes, Jimin whispered. Then after a pause, no, I hate that I still love him. The door to the hallway opened slightly. A nurse whispered something urgently. Dr. Han stood and stepped out. When she returned, her face was unreadable. You have a visitor, she said. Jimin stiffened. I told you I didn't want. It's Jungkook. Jimin froze. The mug slipped from his hands and shattered on the floor. Tell him to leave, he said instantly. Tell him if he steps inside, I'll walk out that door and never come back. Dr. Han didn't move. He flew here without telling anyone. He's sitting on the steps outside in the rain. Jimin clenched his fists. Good. But even as he said it, his chest ached. His body leaned toward the window, toward the possibility of a silhouette in the storm. He hated him. He needed him. He wanted to scream and punch and collapse into his arms all at once. If you don't want to talk to him, Dr. Han said gently, maybe write him something, anything, and I'll deliver it. Jimin hesitated. Then, with trembling fingers, he picked up a pen and tore a scrap from her notepad. He wrote only 5 words, you don't get to heal. The paper was folded, sealed in silence, and handed over. Outside, soaked and shivering, Jungkook opened it with hands that shook as badly as his heart. As he read the words, his lips parted and his vision blurred. And still, he whispered, I'll wait. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. Jungkook sat on the stone steps outside the Jeju Wellness Center, hoodie drenched, legs numb, fingers curled around the crumpled piece of paper that had gutted him with just 5 words, you don't get to heal. He read it over and over again like it might change, like the ink might smudge and reveal some hidden meaning, something softer, something forgivable. But it never did. Inside, Jimin sat cross-legged on the therapy room floor, hands wrapped tightly around his knees as he stared blankly at the doorway. Dr. Han watched him in silence, allowing the stillness to fill the room. He's still there, she finally said. You know that, don't you? Jimin didn't respond. Why does that scare you more than if he had left? He looked at her then, eyes red, throat raw. Because I don't know if I want him gone or inside. Inside this room. Inside me, Jimin whispered. Inside my heart. Inside my head, he's everywhere, even here, especially here. Dr. Han nodded slowly. You can't heal while you're still punishing him or yourself. Jimin laughed bitterly. You think this is punishment? He destroyed me. He gets to sit in the rain while I rebuild what's left. That's not punishment, that's balance. What if he's not trying to heal? She asked. What if he's just trying to bleed? The words hit something in him he wasn't ready to confront. Downstairs, the center's staff grew more agitated. He can't stay out there, a nurse muttered to Dr. Han. He hasn't eaten, he's barely spoken. Let him stay, Dr. Han said calmly, but keep an eye on him. If he collapses, we intervene. And so he stayed, another day, another night, until morning light broke and Jimin stepped quietly through the front doors, hoodie pulled up, hands in his pockets. Jungkook looked up slowly, eyes swollen, face pale. Jimin stood a meter away, silent. The air between them buzzed with everything unsaid. I came to scream at you, Jimin began, voice hoarse, but I don't even have the energy to hate you today. Jungkook didn't move. Then don't scream, just sit with me. Jimin hesitated, then slowly lowered himself to the step beside him, not touching, not even facing him, just silence, 2 ghosts under a gray sky. You look like shit, Jimin muttered. Jungkook almost smiled. You said that the first day we met. And I meant it then too. They both laughed, quiet, broken, but real. Jimin's hand trembled on his lap. Why did you really send her those lyrics? Because I wanted her to understand how much I loved you, Jungkook confessed. I didn't send them for her. I sent them hoping someone would tell me I wasn't insane for feeling like I needed you more than I needed air. And you thought she'd validate you. I thought she'd mirror you. I was wrong. I'm always wrong when it comes to pain. Jimin inhaled slowly. She sold those lyrics to Dispatch. She twisted the meanings. Do you know how humiliating it was to read my heart on the internet with a narrative I never chose? I know, Jungkook whispered, and I'll never stop being sorry. Sorry doesn't erase betrayal, Jimin said, turning to face him now. You want to fix this. Stop trying to be forgiven. Start learning how to live with the fact that you may never be. Jungkook looked into his eyes, those same eyes that once held stars for him. Then let me learn. Let me stay near you even if all I do is watch you heal from afar. Jimin's lip trembled, the words striking deeper than he was prepared for. Do you even know what you did to me, Jungkook? I was writing a song called Eclipse for us, a love song, about how you were my sun and my shadow. I had melodies in my head at night because of the way you looked at me after shows, and then suddenly it was all gone. The inspiration, the music, the meaning. Then let me be your silence, Jungkook begged. If I can't be your music, let me be the space you rebuild in. Let me be the background hum while you find your sound again. Jimin's tears slipped quietly down his cheeks. I want to hate you so bad. Then hate me, just don't disappear. If I stay, Jimin whispered, it's not for you, it's for me, for the part of me that needs closure, not love. Jungkook nodded, every inch of him vibrating with restraint. I'll take whatever you give me. They sat there in silence again, two shattered parts of something once beautiful, now trying to decide if ruins could become something new. Jimin stood after a while. I'm going back inside. Don't follow me, Jungkook nodded. I won't, but I'll be here as long as it takes. Jimin paused at the door. You don't get to time my healing, Jungkook, you lost that right. I know, he replied, but I'll be here anyway. And with that, Jimin disappeared into the building and Jungkook remained outside, not because he hoped for redemption, but because it was the only place that still felt honest. The only place left where the truth hurt enough to feel real. And as the sky began to cry again, he welcomed the rain like it was penance. Because maybe, just maybe, pain was the only language they still shared. The world hadn't seen Jimin in 20 days. Not on stage, not in dance practice, not on live, not even in shadows. Speculation turned into headlines, headlines into accusations, and the silence from HYBE became its own kind of scandal. Fans trended hashtags daily demanding answers, while others spun wild theories, drugs, secret surgeries, breakdowns, betrayals. No one knew the truth. No one except the 7 men still holding what was left of their brotherhood together with duct tape and denial. Inside the Jeju facility, Jimin was beginning to speak more. Not to the media, not even to the company, but to himself, to the fragments of his voice he had lost between stages and sacrifices. One morning he found himself humming again. Quiet, barely audible, but enough that the nurse outside his room paused with tears in her eyes. He hadn't sung in weeks. Meanwhile, back in Seoul, Jungkook stood in the middle of the practice room alone, eyes closed, earbuds in, looping a demo track Jimin had abandoned. The beat was raw, unfinished, messy, just like their history. Taehyung watched from the doorway without speaking. It had become a daily ritual. Jungkook showed up first, rehearsed alone, left after dark. No cameras, no glory, just repentance in motion. Taehyung finally stepped inside. He called me. Jungkook opened his eyes slowly. What did he say? Nothing about you, Taehyung replied, walking to the center of the room. But he asked me if it was possible to love someone and hate them at the same time. Jungkook's throat tightened. What did you say? I said yes, that it's not only possible, it's inevitable when the love is real. Did he cry? Jungkook asked. No, Taehyung said. His voice didn't shake either. He sounded clear, cold, like someone who just finished digging a grave for a dream. Jungkook looked down. He's never going to forgive me, is he? Do you want forgiveness? Taehyung asked, tilting his head. Or do you just want things to go back to how they were? I want to hold his hand again without him flinching, Jungkook whispered. I want to wake up and not remember the way he looked at me the night I lost him. I want to sing next to him and not feel like I'm contaminating his harmony. Then stop rehearsing like a ghost, Taehyung snapped. You want him back. Get your fire back. The Jungkook who took the world by storm didn't sit around crying. He fought, so fight. That night, Jungkook did something reckless. He went live, no script, no staff, no PR team, just his face tired, raw, pale. The comments exploded immediately, but he didn't speak, not at first, just stared at the screen for a full minute before whispering, "I owe you the truth." He talked for 30 minutes, he confessed, the kiss, the insecurity, the lie, the night he sent the lyrics, the betrayal. He cried, but he didn't ask for forgiveness. He asked for understanding, for accountability, for the right to say out loud what most idols die with buried inside. "I loved him," he said at the end, eyes red, lips trembling, "and I destroyed him. And now I have to learn to love someone I broke only from a distance, only through the songs he no longer writes for me." He ended the live abruptly. The silence that followed online was deafening. Half the fandom collapsed in heartbreak. The other half exploded in rage. But one person was shaking in front of his phone, hands covering his mouth, tears slipping freely. Jimin. He watched every second of it from a private device he hadn't told the doctors he kept under his mattress. And when Jungkook said, "I loved him," Jimin dropped the phone, clutching his chest, whispering, "You still do," like a prayer or a curse. The next day he asked for a guitar. No one questioned him. 2 days later, a nurse overheard him singing, "Even if the world forgets me, will you still hear my name in your dreams?" The same night, Yoongi barged into HYBE's executive office, slamming down a USB stick. "This is the next release," he said. "Solo track?" the manager asked. "No," Yoongi replied. "Duet. Between who?" "Jimin and Jungkook." The room went silent. "That's career suicide," one executive muttered. "Or rebirth," Yoongi said, eyes burning. "Either way, it's the only way forward." Back in Jeju, Jimin got the file in a plain envelope. No note, no sender name, just the title scrawled in messy black ink, "Forgive me or don't." He hesitated before pressing play. Jungkook's voice came first, cracked, imperfect, real. "I sang to the ghost of us, hoping it would haunt you too." Then silence. Then Jimin's own voice entered, his demo, spliced in by Yoongi from a song he never finished. It felt like time collapsed. Like the past and present were in harmony again, even if only for 3 minutes and 42 seconds. When the song ended, Jimin stared at the speaker, breathless. He didn't cry, he didn't smile, he just whispered, "He heard me." And that night, for the first time since Tokyo, he dreamed of Jungkook. But this time, the dream didn't end in a scream. It ended with a note, unfinished, out of key, but soft. A beginning, not a goodbye. The room was silent except for the hum of the amplifier when Jimin finally spoke, his voice barely louder than breath yet heavy enough to bend the air around it. "He turned my pain into music," he said, fingers tightening around the guitar neck. Dr. Han watched him carefully. "Does that make you angry?" Jimin exhaled sharply. "It makes me feel seen, and that scares me more than anger." Outside the facility, cameras began to gather. HYBE's silence had cracked the moment Jungkook's live confession went viral, and now every outlet wanted blood or redemption, preferably both. Inside a Seoul conference room, executives shouted over one another while Yoongi stood unmoving, arms crossed. "You let him confess without approval," Director Kang barked. "You released a duet without clearance." "No," Yoongi replied calmly. "I released the truth." "Truth doesn't sell," another executive snapped. "Chaos does." "Then congratulations," Yoongi said coldly. "You finally got what you wanted." Back in Jeju, Jimin stared at his phone, a single message lighting the screen from an unknown number. "I won't sing your words again without your permission. I won't touch your pain unless you ask me to." He didn't reply. Instead, he stood abruptly and walked toward the exit, heart pounding, hands shaking. The nurse stopped him. "You're not cleared to leave." "I'm not leaving," Jimin said, jaw set. "I'm facing something." Outside, Jungkook was there again, thinner, darker under the eyes, holding nothing but his phone and the weight of everything he'd confessed to the world. When he saw Jimin, he froze. "I didn't come to ask you anything," Jungkook said quickly, voice trembling. "I just needed to know you were okay." Jimin laughed softly, bitter and exhausted. "You don't get to decide that anymore." "I know," Jungkook replied. "I just needed to say thank you." Jimin's brows knit together. "For what?" "For not erasing me," Jungkook said. "You could have told them everything. You could have destroyed me back. You didn't." Jimin stepped closer, close enough that Jungkook could smell the antiseptic clinging to his clothes. "Don't confuse restraint with mercy," Jimin said quietly. "I didn't expose you because I didn't want to hear your voice disappear from the world. That doesn't mean I forgave you." Jungkook nodded, tears pooling but not falling. Then let me stand here and accept whatever you give me. You want to know the worst part, Jimin continued, voice cracking despite his effort to stay composed. It wasn't the kiss, it wasn't the lyrics. It was realizing that when you panicked, you didn't run to me, you ran away from me. Jungkook's breath hitched. I was afraid you'd see how small I felt next to you. And instead, Jimin said, eyes glistening, you made me feel replaceable. The words shattered between them, raw and irreversible. From across the street, a camera shutter clicked. Jungkook instinctively stepped back. Jimin noticed and scoffed. Still hiding. Trying to protect you, Jungkook whispered. You don't get to protect me anymore, Jimin snapped, then softened, shoulders sagging. But you can stop hurting me. Tell me how, Jungkook pleaded. Jimin looked at him for a long moment, then said the words that neither of them were ready for. Sing with me, live, no edits, no scripts, no apologies hidden in metaphors. If you can stand next to me and not lie, not to them, not to me, not to yourself, then maybe I'll believe you didn't choose her, you chose fear. Jungkook swallowed hard. When? Tomorrow, Jimin said, turning back toward the entrance. If you fail, I walk away for good. Inside HYBE, panic erupted as the news leaked. You can't let them do this, a manager yelled. It'll split the fandom, Yoongi smirked, or heal it. That night, Jungkook didn't sleep. Neither did Jimin. One practiced until his voice cracked open. The other sat with his guitar, staring at strings like they held answers. Two men on opposite sides of a wound, preparing to bleed in front of the world, not for forgiveness, not for love, but for the truth that had already cost them everything. The stage lights burned hotter than any spotlight Jungkook had ever stood under, because this time there were no choreographers, no backing tracks to hide behind, no smiling members buffering the tension. Just him, Jimin, two microphones, and an audience that could feel the history vibrating between them. The studio was packed with executives pretending to be calm, staff holding their breath, cameras rolling without blinking, and millions watching live, waiting for either a miracle or a massacre. Jimin stepped onto the stage first, expression unreadable, posture straight but rigid, his jaw clenched like he was holding himself together by force. When Jungkook followed, a murmur rippled through the room, half shock, half anticipation. They didn't look at each other at first. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Jimin finally spoke into the mic, voice steady but cold. Before we sing, I want to say something. A producer hissed his name from off stage, but Jimin ignored it. This isn't a performance, this is a consequence. Jungkook flinched but didn't interrupt. Jimin turned to face him fully now, eyes sharp. You said you loved me in front of the world, so say it again here without hiding. Jungkook swallowed hard, hands trembling around the mic. I loved you, he said. I still do, not because I want you back, but because you changed me and I don't get to erase that. A sharp inhale echoed from the audience. Jimin laughed quietly, a sound that cut deeper than anger. You still don't get it, he said. Love isn't the part that broke me, trust did. Jungkook nodded, tears slipping freely now. Then let me sing the truth, even if it ruins me. The music began, bare piano, slow, exposed. Jungkook's voice cracked on the first note, raw and imperfect, and the room felt like it tilted. I reached for someone else when I should have reached for you, he sang, voice shaking. Jimin's fingers tightened around his mic. When his part came, he hesitated for a fraction of a second before singing back, voice clear, piercing, devastating. I built a home in promises you never meant to keep. The words hit Jungkook like a physical blow. He sang anyway. They sang like two people ripping bandages off open wounds, harmony colliding with pain, eyes finally locking in the middle of the song. Halfway through, Jungkook stopped singing altogether, voice breaking completely. I'm sorry, he whispered into the mic, live, unfiltered. Gasps erupted. Jimin's chest rose and fell violently. For a moment, everyone thought he would walk off. Instead, he stepped closer. You don't apologize in the middle of my pain, Jimin said quietly but firmly. You stand in it. Jungkook nodded, lowering his mic, letting Jimin finish the song alone. Jimin's voice filled the studio, strong and shattered at once, every note a confession he had never been allowed to make. When the final note faded, the silence was unbearable. No applause, no cheers. Just stunned stillness. Jimin lowered the mic slowly. This, he said, turning to the cameras, is what happens when idols are taught to swallow fear instead of speak. Executives shifted nervously. I'm not quitting, Jimin continued. But I'm not pretending either, not for fans, not for contracts, not for him. He looked at Jungkook one last time. Jungkook met his gaze, eyes red, accepting whatever came next. "I don't forgive you today," Jimin said softly, "but I don't erase you either." Jungkook exhaled like he'd been underwater for months. After the broadcast ended, chaos erupted behind the scenes, managers shouting, phones ringing non-stop, but Jimin walked past all of it, straight toward the exit. Jungkook followed, stopping a few steps behind. "Jimin," he called, voice hoarse. Jimin paused but didn't turn around. "This doesn't mean we're okay," he said. "I know," Jungkook replied. "It just means you're still here." Jimin nodded once, a small, almost imperceptible movement, before walking away into the night, leaving Jungkook standing there. Not broken this time, not healed either, but finally honest enough to stay standing. The hallway behind the studio smelled like sweat, hot cables, and panic, and Jimin barely made it 10 steps before a hand grabbed his wrist hard enough to stop him cold. "You don't get to walk away after that," Jungkook said, voice hoarse, shaking. No cameras now, no audience, just truth clawing its way out. Jimin spun around instantly, yanking his arm free. "Did I stutter on stage?" he snapped. "I said I don't forgive you." "I didn't ask for forgiveness," Jungkook shot back, stepping closer, eyes blazing with something dangerous and desperate. "I asked you to stand in the truth with me, and you did. Don't pretend that meant nothing." Jimin laughed sharply, the sound cracking at the edges. "It meant everything, that's the problem." Staff froze nearby, unsure whether to intervene as the tension thickened. "You humiliated me," Jimin continued, voice rising. "You humiliated us, and tonight you made it public, permanent. Do you have any idea what that does to someone like me?" Jungkook swallowed hard. "Do you have any idea what it's like to wake up every day knowing I was the reason you stopped singing in your sleep?" Jimin's eyes flickered, pain flashing before he could hide it. "Don't use my pain as your redemption arc." "Then stop pretending you didn't feel it too," Jungkook snapped. "You sang with me, you looked at me, you didn't flinch." "Because I wanted to survive," Jimin shot back. "Not because I missed you." Jungkook's voice dropped, dangerous and raw. "Lie again, I dare you." Silence slammed between them. Jimin's chest heaved. "You don't get to corner me like this," he said quietly. "Not after Tokyo, not after Jeju, not after you watched me break and still chose fear over me." Jungkook stepped back as if struck. "I choose you every day," he whispered, "even when you hate me." "That's not love," Jimin said, eyes burning. "That's obsession born from guilt." "And what is this?" Jungkook fired back. "You keep pulling me close just to push me away. You tell me not to disappear but punish me when I stay. What do you want from me, Jimin?" Jimin opened his mouth, then stopped, fists clenching at his sides. "I want you to stop being the center of my healing," he said finally. "I want my music back without hearing your voice in every note." "Then let me leave," Jungkook said, sudden and sharp. "If that's what it takes, I'll disappear. No more waiting outside buildings. No more messages. No more songs." Jimin froze. "Don't," he said instantly, the words slipping out before he could stop it. Jungkook stared at him. "So which is it?" "I don't know," Jimin exploded, shoving him hard in the chest. "I don't know how to exist in a world where you're either everywhere or nowhere. You ruined the middle." Jungkook didn't move, didn't push back. He just let it hit. "Then tell me how to stay without destroying you," he pleaded. "Tell me the rules, I'll follow them." Jimin's laugh broke into a sob he couldn't stop in time. "That's the thing," he said, voice shattered. "Love isn't supposed to have rules like this." From the end of the hallway, Namjoon's voice cut through the chaos. "Both of you stop." They turned. "You think tonight was the climax?" Namjoon continued grimly. "It was the beginning. HYBE is panicking. Sponsors are threatening to pull out. They want a statement by morning together." Jimin wiped his face angrily. "No," Jungkook nodded. "I'll do it alone." Jimin looked at him sharply. "You don't get to protect me anymore." "I know," Jungkook replied, "but I can still take responsibility." Jimin stared at him for a long moment, then said quietly, "Say one wrong thing and I will walk away forever." Jungkook met his gaze. "Then I'll choose my words like my life depends on it." That night, as Seoul buzzed with chaos and speculation, Jimin sat alone in the dorm studio, fingers hovering over piano keys, heart racing. Across the city, Jungkook stood in front of a blank page. Realizing for the first time that loving someone didn't mean chasing them. It meant standing still and letting them decide whether to come closer or finally let go. And neither of them slept, because the truth they had unleashed was louder than any song they had ever sung.